Morena tata. Ti hei Māori ora. Ko Koipecherin Kinteo ta Maunga. Ko Loch Duich te Roto. Ko Clan Cameron. Ko Clan Makingi Roto Iwi. Ko Macleary. Ko Makingi Kinteo ti Awa te Iwi. No te whenua ko te mana ho. Ko Stephen McCunshin Macleary a ho. Ko Stephen Clarke, toko ingoa, no reina, tēnā koto, tēnā tōtu, tēnā katoa, katoa. Morena, good morning. My name's Stephen Clarke. I'm here as, I laughingly call myself a RIMPA. I'm the New Zealand part of RIMPA. I represent also Aotearoa New Zealand, and what I just started with is what in Maori Te Reo language they call a pepeha. And when you start a meeting or you start an interaction with anyone, it's about toranga waiwai, placing your feet in the land and saying who you are and how you interact with your environment and how you interact with each other as human beings and who you are. Your ancestors. So I acknowledged my ancestry. My ancestry and the long history of who I am is who makes me who I am. And our nations are about who we are. And it's about stories, because we're humans. We understand each other through our humanity, through the stories that we tell. And our stories are not individual. Our stories are steeped in the deep history that we all carry. And we, as information and archivists and records managers, know that our job is merely to be a steward, to carry our history and our stories through time. We are merely custodians. But that is the most powerful job you can possibly have in any culture, is having that weighty, deep history, that massive role that we serve. We serve humanity. We serve those stories. And I'd like to acknowledge the minister, and I'd like to acknowledge the history and the whakapapa of all the people of the First Nations in this country and everywhere. And then one of my favorite things about being a New Zealander, although I may not sound like one, is that understanding and deep knowledge of history that we bring to everything that we do. And I think in Western culture, we've lost some of that. And we've bundled up and we've given it a special job. And that's sort of what we do, instead of it being something that we all do. But we all know that we all do this anyway, because we all carry our history and our culture with us. It's who we are. It's what we do. And I'd like to acknowledge the minister, and powerful words, and I couldn't agree more with very much of what she said. We're not just historians. We're not just carriers of history and stories. We're also regulators. And part of our job is to make sure that others do for society what we would want society to happen. That is an incredible opportunity. It's weighty, it's difficult, but it's important. And I think, as records managers and archivists, what we don't do well enough is recognize who we are and that importance of what we do. And when I put it into that culture and that context of how important what we do is to our society and to healing and to explaining and telling stories, why do we have a bit of an imposter syndrome as a culture within our professions? I was just reflecting last night about how when, as records managers and archivists, we constantly bang on about, oh, those IT guys are doing our job. Those privacy officers are doing our job. Those lawyers are doing our job. Those data managers are doing our job. Those cybersecurity guys are doing that job. Why are they doing our job? Because we're not doing it, right? They're filling in the void that we have left, that we should be doing. And one of the things I really want to talk about this morning is being passionate about who we are and respecting our community and respecting our profession. Because I think half the time that when records managers and archivists go into the room with CIOs, for example, the battle's already lost because we don't go in as equals. We already believe that somehow we're less important. We've lost the battle because we don't believe we're equals. And then yet, when we put into culture, into context, who we are and what we do, we are massively important. And so I reflect upon my last couple of days listening to accidental records managers in Australia and New Zealand, and that's my experience in the Southern Hemisphere. But to put that into context, I would love to have been able to fall in to being a records manager. Because the world I came from, I'm from Scotland originally. That's what I said in my Pepe Ha. Ko te mana ho. I'm from Scotland. I'm from the UK. And in the UK, being a records manager and archivist is professionalized. And what that means is you can't just fall into it. You have to go and get a master's degree to become a records manager, which means it's not something you fall into. It's something you choose to do. And it's respected to an extent because of that. And I'm not saying that everybody needs a master's degree to do our job. But the reason I'm bringing that into the context is that it's not in the UK something that, and in Europe in general, people fall into. They have to work for it, they have to achieve it, and they have to get it. And it's exclusive. And if you want to be recognizing your society and your stories and your history, that's everyone's history, not just the top 5% or 10% of your society that are lucky enough to go to university and to get postgraduate degrees to do a job that is fundamental to every one of us in this room, telling our stories, carrying our history through time. And so I reflect on that, and I think, in some ways, I find it frustrating that I had to go to the bank after I got a degree and ask for £10,000 to go and get a master's degree in records and archives to do this job. But not only that, to get on the master's course was highly competitive. When I did it, it was 14 applicants for every place to spend that £10,000. So you couldn't just rock up with the money. You had to have experience. And so all local authorities in the UK, most of them have what they call graduate trainee courses, which is code for we get really smart young people to come and work for us for almost nothing for a year and do that work for us. But it's kind of amazing that I spent a year, for me it was West Glamorgan District Council, was where I did my 1-year archives traineeship. And I learned amazing things doing that in a local authority, learning records and archives and what it meant to be a professional in this field. And the reason I'm talking about this is not because it's about me. I'm trying to contextualize our profession. That I had to do that. I had to go and spend a year getting experience to go and apply to be a records manager, an archivist. And not only that, mandatory course requirement was having medieval Latin. So I had to go and do summer school and learn medieval Latin to go out onto this course. And the reason I'm talking about that is, and this is why I kind of like the idea that people could accidentally fall into this profession, because in the world that I come from, that profession was kept from the likes of me How many people from the back streets of Glasgow know Latin and have a degree to be able to do the most important job that we can do, which is express ourselves and carry our culture and say who we are and tell our stories? So every impediment was put in my place in front of me to do the job that I wanted to do. I had to go and borrow against my house thousands of pounds. I had to learn medieval Latin. I had to go and get a year minimum of experience, and then I had to go and do 3 interviews to be accepted onto the course to do my master's in records and archives. So when I got there and I achieved that, I was like, whoa, this is not meant for the likes of me. And once I got into my profession, I also realized that I would never get beyond records officer, because the way it works in the UK is if you want to get on, it's not about you. It's not even really about your mum or dad. It's probably your grandparents and which university they went to, because that's who gets the jobs. So I had to move to the other side of the world. And it wasn't because I didn't want to. I'd be honest, I had enough of the UK and I wanted to go and live in a place that was more egalitarian and richer in its culture and its heritage than my own country, which is, I come from a country which the oldest house is 5,500 years old. So it has history. However, what it doesn't have is opportunity in the way that everyone in this room had an opportunity that I never had. I had to work so hard to get the thing that people fall into in Australia and New Zealand. And you go, isn't that incredible that you can fall into something so important without having to spend years trying to achieve it? But achieve it, nonetheless, I did. And I wasn't doing it for me, although I kind of was, but I was doing it for my culture, my society, and my people who aren't represented in the records, right? What do the records of history that we look after, who do they represent? What do they represent? They represent our government, and they represent our judiciary. And how do we get represented in that? We get represented in that in being the people that went through that mill. And when you look at history and you look at archives and you look at records, how are people represented? Not in glamorous, sexy, and cool ways. It's police records. It's tax records. Judicial records. How we're represented is not a real, true reflection of who we are. And that's one of the things I loved about moving to New Zealand, is that there was a conscious effort to represent us as who we are. I mean, I'm not Indigenous New Zealander. I'm a Pakeha, which is a white fella that's come over to the lands of other people that have been there a long time. And I have to recognize that. I'll never be native, but I can bring something to the country. And it's passion, and it's knowledge, and it's the ability to help us all to be better human beings by representing the breadth of who we are. And that's who we are as records and information managers. And I actually do have slides. I kind of forgot to put them up. Actually, I do have slides, but I spoke to my colleague Jackie Stockwell 2 days ago on the first day of this conference. And I went, oh, look at this slide I've got. And she went, you can't do that. I was like, why not? She said, it's all full of text. No one's going to listen to you if you're putting text up on the screen. Tell stories. That's what we do. So what's the best story I can tell is my story, and that's what I've started with. So that's my story. But I also want to come to the story of our profession, who we are, and how we can move forward. So I finally got to the first slide, right? So, and I'll do the pitch now. So I was chief archivist of Aotearoa, New Zealand. That was my last day job. And huge honor and privilege to do that role. But the thing I found that I really cared about that I was passionate about I mean, I cared about lots of aspects of the role, but the thing I really enjoyed and was passionate about was using the tools of the modern age to automate what we do. And I think for me, that's the most interesting thing about AI. And I'll be honest, I've never really done AI. I've done machine learning. People talk about AI. So in September, I decided I'm going to put my notice in. I've spent 2 years doing something I really care about, which is working with Microsoft and Amazon. Because basically I went to Amazon and I said, hey, I'm the chief archivist, and we've got this thing called records management, and we've got this thing called regulation, and no one's doing it, right? I look in government, and I've worked in 10, 12 government agencies in New Zealand. Who's doing genuine, proper records and information management? Pretty much nobody. And why? Well, because it's hard to do. And we don't make it easy for people, we make it hard for people to do it. But AI, what it does, and machine learning, what it does, is it automates things. It makes it easier and quicker to do stuff. But what does it automate? It automates something, and that something is what we do. That something is ontology. That something is classification. That something is understanding, mining, bringing value from information and data. That's what we do. And if you're going to automate something, you've got to know what the thing is. That's us. So we talk about the technology as if it's somehow an end in itself. It's not. It automates, it makes easier things that already exist, our profession. And we should not hide our light under a bushel on that. So I'm working with a startup in New Zealand called Verarc, and AI is the bit that I'm really passionate about. And I'm going to go for a bit of a tangent. But I said, no money. I went to government and I got an innovation fund. Because, hold on here, you might not believe this, but archives is not massively funded. And we didn't have spare thousands of dollars to do anything. In fact, we had no money at all. So I basically got $220,000 on an government innovation fund. And I thought, what I really want to do is I want to prove that records and information management can be done and we can automate it and make it easy. Because how do people want their services? If I think of what Gus said standing on the stage mere hours ago, talking about change and talking about the closest point between two things is the least friction and the least difficulty in doing stuff, and how customers will just go in their own way. Our job is to make it as simple and easy as possible. And that's what I think what automation does, which is puts it back under the waterline. And I think back to the 70s and 80s, or 1870s and 80s, or 7000 BC, when I think about being an information records manager, I'm part of that tradition that the Sumerians were doing 7,000 years ago. That was revolutionized and literally by the French and their revolution. Respect the fawns and all that kind of deep theory that we have in our culture and history. And what we do is that we have literally thousands of years of knowledge about data and information. We know this stuff, right? So what does AI do? It automates that. So what does it automate? What we do. It's just a technology. And instead of being afraid or scared of AI, we should be saying, hey, what it does is makes our job easier to do. And if you go pre-80s, what we did was under the waterline, right? It was in and out trays. And we've ended up in a situation where instead of selling the sizzle or selling the sausage, we expect people in organizations to be mini records and information managers. And it's like, I'm Joe Bloggs from Sector C and Zone F in an organization, and I'm trying to do my day job. And somebody has decided that part of my day job has been an information manager. I've suddenly got to add metadata and classify stuff and know where to put things. Why the hell do I do that? And why should I want to do that? I don't. I just want to do my day job. That information management stuff is someone else's job. Cybersecurity people don't expect you to be many cybersecurity people. CIOs don't expect you to be people that understand how to do cloud assessments. Privacy officers don't expect you to know the law, deep knowledge of the law and privacy. Why do we as information records managers expect our staff and our people in our organizations to do our job for us? We should go back to the 70s in some ways to look forward. And that we should go back under the waterline, hide it, make it easy, automate it, like we used to. So this isn't new, you know? It's what our profession's done for thousands of years. We just did it in the background, and no one cared. But society cared because those history and the records are there. So finally getting to the beginning of my presentation. So what I want to do is talk about a manifesto for change of who we are and what we do. And I think that we need a call to action. I think we are our own worst enemies as records and information managers, that we expect other people to do our job for us, and we whinge on about other people doing our job when we're not doing it. Oh, let's see. Why are those CIOs doing this? Why are those data people doing this? They're stealing our stuff. We've just got to be better at delivering what we do. So I asked ChatGPT, what are the key challenges for us in the 21st century? And I actually thought ChatGPT did a reasonable job, you know. And it kind of makes sense when you read it, and you go, oh yeah, I kind of get that. That all does kind of make sense. But it's kind of technical, and it's kind of missing the point. And here's mine as a human. We've lost control of what we do. We've lost the innovation. We're not leaders, we're followers. Why aren't we leaders? We've got thousands of years of knowledge in what we do. We should be leading, not following. We've lost our influence. We've lost our brand. We don't really know who we are and what we do, and we don't sell the value of what we do. That's a problem. And that's something we have to change, because our credibility lies on it. We're on the outside looking in. That's a problem. We should be in the center of things. And, you know, I use the example of when an organization is building a new core data system, or it's bringing AI in, and you think, oh gosh, we'll go to the board, we'll go to the executive, and the executive turns around and they go, wow, we're doing this new AI thing. Oh, who's our go-to people? Let's go to the records team. Doesn't happen, does it? But it should. We should have that go-to personality, because we know this stuff. And yet, we hide our light under a bushel, and we don't sell who we are. We're on the outside looking in, squished up. So we need to address stuff that we're not addressing. We need to be part and central to how organizations work. And you can get these slides, so I'm not going to read them out because we're rubbish at that. Yeah, anyway, you can read the stuff. I'm going to talk about stuff, but if you really want to read it, you can read it. So what I came up with was a manifesto for change, and a manifesto for what we do and what we should be doing, and if we're not doing it, what we could and should be doing. And I thought, what's the key thing is we need to be strategic. We are seen as being operational. We're seen as being peripheral. And do you know what? We're our own worst enemies in this. When I think about going into an organization, so I'll use, I used to work for Inland Revenue. Wildly popular organization, everybody loves tax, right? And when I joined the records team, all they banged on about was getting an ECM. Do you know what? Inland Revenue doesn't care about its administrative records. It cares about its tax systems. 80% of the value of the organization and its information was in the core tax systems. That's where I needed to do my records and information management, not in the ECM peripheral stuff that no one cared about. I'm not saying it's not important, but you know, in the big picture of how important what we do as an organization is, The ECM administrative record stuff is at the bottom of that pile. And I worked at another agency, which I won't name, but it's instructive because it's pretty much the same as everybody else I worked. The ECM bit, the bit that the records managers ran, had 4% of the organization's information in it. 4%. It wasn't the top 4%, let's put it that way. And we go, oh wow, we've managed to get control over the 4% of the records of this organization no one cares about. Brilliant. That's us adding value. No, it isn't. Because we didn't make it easy. We make it difficult. We expect users to do the hard work, the donkey work. You do the metadata. You do the filing. You understand where stuff is. No, just do it for them. And a big part of that is that we don't embrace change. We don't run with it. We don't lead the change. We fight the change. How often have you heard records and information managers talk about, oh, these new things come along and we don't have control of it? Why aren't we leading it? And it's partly because we don't deliver. We do not deliver for organizations. Delivering fantastic results for the 4% of the records of your organization that no one really cares about is not delivering as a business and not delivering as a critical core part of the organization that's the go-to people that really matter. But we could and should be doing that. And part of the reason is we talk about those other people doing our job instead of thinking, actually, we're part of an information data ecosystem. We need to be really, really good at speaking the language of our peers and making what we do accessible to them. And we don't really do that either. We give them retention disposal schedules that, quite frankly, I can't be bothered reading. So why the hell would they do it? And we don't say, oh, here's the retention disposal schedule. They go, great, how do I put it into the system? You've given me this unwieldy thing that I can't apply in my system because it's not how information actually works. You've come with this BCS and this R&D schedule, which is theoretical and it's wonderful in its complexity, but you can't actually put it into systems. So give me the artifacts that allow me to do it. Don't give me problems, give me solutions. And I think that's not something we're good at. And we have to start saying yes to things instead of saying, no, 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 you can't do that because it's not compliant. We say, yes, but here's how we can make it compliant. Not no. And we have to be bold and we have to be proud of who we are. And I think there is a bit of an imposter syndrome for us as records and information managers. As I alluded to before. We don't go out in the room with CIOs and go, we are equals at minimum, and we should be leading this organization in its new endeavors in information data. And we have fantastic skills as well. Because, I alluded to earlier when I talked about having to go and get training, and get a master's to become a records manager. 40% of that course was about ethics. Societal expectations of how information and records are managed. That's really important. You won't find anyone with an IT degree that did ethics in that way, and understanding our role in society. We bring that to the table. No one else does that. So when you're talking about having explainable AI in an organization, we bring a lot to that conversation, and we should be front and center of it. And we're not, but we should be, because we're not strategic. So it brings it back to front and center. So ultimately, we need to be strategic. We need to make it easy. We need to get out of the way and just make it happen for our organizations. We need to embrace the change. We need to deliver, deliver, deliver. Don't talk, tell people they're doing it wrong. Just deliver it. And we need to be seen as part of the information and data ecosystem, not the guys in the corner that say no or do the ECM. We are integral and woven into the fabric of our organizations because we deliver core business value through the information and data delivery that we can do for our organizations, for society, and for the individuals that work within our systems. Say yes. Don't say no. Oh, this new thing. No, 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 you can't do that because there's no retention disposal. Oh, no, you can't do that because the information is not classified. Yes, we can do it, and we can help you to do it, and we'll automate it and make it simple. We've got to be bold and be proud of who we are and earn our place in the room and take that space, not be ashamed or quiet or feel that we're second-class citizens. And we have the ethics to back it up. Because we're trained in this. It's in our DNA. It's in our deep core of who we are as information professionals. We have the ethics. And no one else really has that. So, in summary, you've got to do all that stuff. I'm not going to go through that. You can read it. The slides will be available, I'm sure. So I asked ChatGPT, AI, and machine learning for records and information management practice. How do we do it? And what do we get out of it? That stuff. Now, if a dumb algorithm can come up with this, we can come up with it. So what's the art of the possible for us as professionals? We've got to deliver our products in a way that are consumable and the path of least resistance. And by that, I mean, we need to speak the language of our partners and our peers. We need to be part of the IT models and how they work. So we have to be part of that SDLC methodology, the system development life cycle, as they call it. Because you know what? The arrow's up there. System architect, designer, owner, analyst. That's where we need to be involved. We all know that situation where organizations put in a new system, then they come and speak to us and say, how do we do this records and information management thing after we've put the system in? Well, you can't do it then. You've got to do it at the beginning and be in the room for that conversation at the design level. And the analogy, I've got slides from other presentations where I talk about the information layer cake. And the things that go into making a cake are the same things that go into making an information system. And when someone says, hey, I've got the cake, and you go, I'm the records manager, can we get the eggs back out again? How do you get the eggs back out of the cake? And how do you get the eggs into the cake? You've got to do it at the beginning. You can't put the eggs in afterwards, because it's about being there for the system design part. And we've got to be part of that. And we've got to be able to provide the requirements, the business requirements and functional requirements that we need to do information and records management to them at the beginning and build it into the system. Righto, so use that language. We're in there. You look at that stuff, that's what we do. In enterprise architecture, I've put red rings around those bits because that's what we do. But we're not in the conversation, and we should be. It's because we don't get ourselves in the table talking about what we require at the very beginning. We need to think about the capabilities that we require in our systems and build them into language and into artifacts that are consumable by information system designers so that our stuff is in there from the beginning. Someone already did this. So we think about what are our capabilities, what are our artifacts, how do we give our partners the things that they need to make us successful, to make all of us successful in what we do. We need to break it down into chunks that are consumable by other information and data management professionals. Be part of the team. We have to map to information domains what we do. This is just stuff, it's just a bit of a mock-up. It's just the stuff I've done in the past when I've tried to do this. And actually what I might do. And I'm going to go back. So we have tried this in the past, and the work I did with my wonderful Kiwi colleague, Trish O'Kane, we worked together, and the work we did at Inland Revenue of trying to do this, of trying to build this, they spent billions of dollars rebuilding the tax system. And I said, we've got to get records and information management into this at the beginning. So we did that right at the very beginning before they spent the $1.4 billion in building the new tax system. How do we get the records and information management into the system at the beginning? And the work that we did became ISO 21965. Building what we do as an enterprise architecture artifact that the solutions architect picks up and goes, all right, that's the records and information bit. Boom, we put that into the system. We didn't go, here's a retention disposal schedule, go and work with that. No, we said, this is how it's done, and this is how you build it into the system. And we did the hard yards for them, so they didn't have to do it. Because I tell you, they're not going to do the hard yards. It's easier and quicker for them not to build your stuff in if you don't do it for them. So do it for them. Make it easy. And, and breaking things up into the 4 Ps that enterprise architecture talks about, which is the people, platform, process, policy. We're great at policy, right? We love policies, we do policies. But you know what? Policies don't do anything on themselves unless people put them into processes and run them in platforms. So we have to bring those things together. So, in summary, my manifesto for change is we have got to be better at what we do and do it in a different way and not be afraid of who we are and not have that imposter syndrome. We are amazing people. This community, our profession, is amazing, awesome, and incredible. And we should be proud of that, and we should shout at the rooftops, and we should be in the room with our peers and with our executive teams and being the go-to people to make things happen for our organizations. And we should be doing that. And if we're not, now's the time to do it. So let's change.